Welcome to St. Martin in the Fields, and welcome to Great Sacred Music. Special welcome to those of you joining us online. Today we're considering the life and ministry of St. Vincent de Paul after his feast day yesterday, and more generally reflecting on issues of poverty in church history. Vincent de Paul was a 17th century Roman Catholic French priest associated with ministry to the poor, who set up a network of organizations still associated with the same kind of work. He was born in 1581 in Gascony, and one story, still much disputed amongst historians and biographers, says that he was abducted by Barbary pirates in the Mediterranean and spent 2 years as a slave. It's too glamorous not to be true. His life was transformed when he heard the confession of a dying peasant in 1612. When I was taught to hear confessions more than 30 years ago, the priest who taught me said a very memorable thing. He said, you'll find, and you wouldn't expect this, but you will find that you come away from the experience with more respect for the person who's made their confession rather than less. I have found that to be true. But I've never had an experience like Vincent de Paul had, where hearing the confession of a dying peasant changed my whole life and caused such an extraordinary initiative in the Catholic Church as this occasion did. Vincent de Paul, after that confession, founded the Congregation of the Mission, and he was also very committed to the renewal of clergy life. Clergy standards in the 17th century in France were, shall we say, suboptimal, but not once he'd got his hands on them. He died in 1660. It took, 40 plus 37? 77 years for him to be canonized, so obviously administrative hold-ups in the Vatican were, again, suboptimal. But in 1737 he was finally canonized, and the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, world influential today, was founded in Paris in 1833. So a hugely influential figure. De Paul International, again, is a charity you'll be aware of, very involved in Ukraine and many other countries throughout the world in crises all over the place. We're going to start today, as we always do, by singing a hymn together. You'll find it on the inside of the sheets. It's written by Bernadette Farrell, our near neighbour, very involved in the Archdiocese of Westminster as a Roman Catholic. She's a community organizer, a prolific hymn writer, and she wrote this for the dedication of a church. We remain seated as the voices stand and lead us as we sing Christ Be Our Light.
Oh
We're going to hear two pieces now with a bearing on issues of poverty. The first is Psalm 43, one of the psalms concerning justice, and then we're going to hear a setting of the Magnificat. They're quite contrasting in a number of ways, not least because justice, as we would generally understand it, as the Old Testament understands it, is really a thing for the whole of society. It's built up by the rule of law, as we would call it today. That's not really an Old Testament expression. It requires institutions. It requires just people. And what the psalmist is calling for is that sense of justice that you plead for when you feel you have been wronged, and there needs to be some kind of institution or an authority that can restore you and vindicate you. The Magnificat, by contrast, is a very different notion of turning the world upside down. It's about upseating the mighty from their seats and exalting the humble and meek. It's always somewhat ironic that it tends to be sung in some of the best endowed chapels in the country, and there's an irony there that's probably best not to dwell on in this company. But the interesting feature about the Magnificat we're going to hear sung today is it was written by H.K. Andrews, who was a long-time lecturer in music at New College, Oxford. And I'm going to ask Paulina, who's playing for us today, to close her ears for the next bit. He actually died whilst playing for the dedication service of the new organ of Trinity College, Oxford, in 1965. So it's a slightly scary thing to be involved with as a musician. But I wonder if he died while playing the Magnificat, or if it would be more appropriate if he died while playing the Nunc Dimittis, which is really about "Now let thy servant depart in peace." Anyway, perhaps we can reflect on that as we hear Psalm 43 and the Magnificat played now. Well, we started today with a version of the Beatitudes. We're going to hear another setting, a very different setting now. The Beatitudes have been described as the most important words spoken by the most important person who ever lived, which I think is a not inappropriate designation. But if you think about the shape of the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and so on, I think you get a different perspective on them if you recognize as you go through the first half of each of them, these are all part of Jesus' experience. In other words, I think you can understand the Beatitudes as Jesus' autobiography. He's telling the story of his life, some of which hasn't yet happened, because he only says this in Matthew chapter 5, and obviously most of the gospel lies ahead. But you realize that he's describing the story of his own life. And also I think you can think about the comma in the middle, blessed are the poor in spirit, comma, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, as the kind of lacuna, the little pause between the first half, which really describes the cross, poor in spirit, mourn, and so on, and the second half that describes the life of the resurrection. So you've kind of got the whole gospel. You've got Jesus' whole life, you've got the whole of the cross, and you've got the whole of the resurrection in the Beatitudes, and you've got pretty much all that the church needs to reflect on about poverty. So, something to reflect on together as we hear this extraordinary setting by Arvo Pärt. Some of you may have been here on Monday evening when the historian Tom Holland was talking about martyrdom, and I asked him then, what was it that was so threatening about the early church that made the Romans so keen to stamp it out? And he said it was the radical equalization of all levels of society, that Roman society was tremendously hierarchical, with the senator right up here and the slave girl right down at the bottom. Christianity, through its veneration of the early saints, the early martyrs, placed the status of the slave girl killed for her faith above that of the senator, and that was just intolerable. So that's very much the spirit of the chorus that we're now going to sing. Graham Kendrick, very much from the evangelical tradition of the church, often associated with pious choruses about a personal relationship with Jesus. Well, not here. This is based on Psalms 107 and 113, raising the poor from the dust and sitting them with princes. We remain seated. The voices stand and lead us as we sing on the inside of the sheets, Beauty for Brokenness. Coming towards the end of Great Sacred Music for this week. If you've enjoyed yourself, please make a donation as you leave in cash, or we have swipe facilities, or you can use the QR code on the back of your leaflets. Do come to our sister program Choral Classics at 3:15 on Sunday, and also next week we'll be celebrating St. Francis of Assisi here on Thursday at 1 o'clock. We're going to finish with an African-American spiritual, All My Trials, Lord. It reflects a conviction deep in the DNA of St. Martin's that you can't fix other people's problems. All you can do is walk alongside them as they sort their own lives out. And that's based on the conviction that Christ doesn't come to fix the world. Christ comes to be with us in the world and accompany us, because it's being with rather than fixing things that is the heart of God's relationship with us. And that translates into the fundamental conviction that our problems in life are not really about limitation, about not having enough stuff, enough information, enough wisdom. They're fundamentally about isolation. This is a spiritual about isolation, and obviously reflects how in the midst of slavery, African Americans during the period of slavery in America found themselves in great company in one another, even amidst the trials they were facing. Thanks for joining us.